Might not be able to get this all in frame, but let's have a go anyway. In my most recent Airsoft gameplay, I took my new Double Eagle UMP45 out for a spin. And whilst it has put on a good show, it has been rather overshadowed by this thing, the 3DArmy Airsoft RPG-7. And as soon as I saw the listing for this a couple of years ago, it went straight in the wish list. And as you can imagine, it took quite a while to make, but was it all worth it in the end? Now if we measure it from the exhaust cone at the back to the muzzle without a rocket installed, just over 37 inches, which is, let's call it 95 centimeters long. And loaded, I know you're just going to have to take my word for it, it's just too big for this bench. It is approximately 126 centimeters long, just under 50 inches. And if we weight unloaded, it is 1222 grams. Chuck in a loaded rocket with a gas shell in it, and it goes up to 1.8. So it's not actually that heavy, but then it is mostly polymer. The rocket's around about 600 grams each, so I've got 3 of them, so that's what? 1.8 kilos of rockets plus the 1.2 kilos of the launcher. Now I did make this to slightly different settings to what was recommended in 3DArmy's design, simply because I wanted to get it done quickly, because it took quite a while to do this thing. It took about a day and a half just to do one rocket. So it may not be as stout as it should be, but it's holding up for the most part, even with my clumsy ass falling over every 5 minutes. 3DArmy has honestly done an incredible, impeccable job on this thing. It is beautiful. Now the RPG-7 has some interesting grips on it. Rather than having a full grip on the front and then your trigger grip is at the front and then your offhand grip is at the rear. And you sling this over your shoulder and fire it, but you know how you fire it. It's an RPG-7. And it takes a bit of getting used to this, because of course usually you would have a grip at the front, or you'd hold the mag well, or whatever you do. And a few times I think I've just held the front here. I've even held the muzzle end of it, which you wouldn't want to do on the real one. The trigger is nice and simple. It simply pushes into the back of the rocket to fire the gas shell. I did leave out a few of the recommended springs from the mechanism because it was getting a bit hard to pull anyway, because you've already got spring tension in the primer of the gas shell. Along the top here we have 2 segments of rail for optics, and I haven't actually made the sights that this comes with up yet, and frankly I'm going to do so. I've tried using some flip up sights, even tried a little scope, but for the most part it was just point shooting with this thing. Hoping that the guidance of Jamshed would help me along the way. If we take a look at the rockets, these are basically just one-shot magazines. If we unscrew the front from the rear, inside you have a 40mm gas shell that you put inside. I prefer using the open front gas shells like these Nutrol shells. You get a real explosive bang with these when they fire, and it really helps propel whatever you're firing out of it. And I use this launcher to fire my Comet and Burster grenades. So I then epoxied this rifled barrel on the inside of the rocket so I could fire those grenades out of it. So to load the rocket, you just take your loaded gas shell, drop it inside like so, and then you want to make sure that you don't cross-fed it when you screw it back together like so. So then I would take one of my Burster or Comet grenades and I would stuff it down the barrel using a bit of tape just to fill in the driving band, so that way it holds inside the rocket so it doesn't fall out. And I actually stow these away on my kit using some P90 pouches. If you fold the Velcro flap around, it will actually grip onto the side of the rocket. And to load this, you take your rocket, stick it into the muzzle end of the launcher, and then twist it, and it locks itself in place. And it's actually quite quick to reload this thing. I've managed to get a couple of shots off within the space of about 10 seconds by reloading this thing really quickly, just by spinning the rocket and sliding it out.
Oh, misfire.
Now performance will of course vary depending on what payloads you use in this thing. The Comet grenades use an 8-shot ring of caps inside, like my meteorite grenades, to emit a loud bang upon impact with a hard surface. These are for very long range indirect fire, or for striking hard targets like buildings when there's nobody in the way. In fact, I've bagged a few kills with these by hitting a tree behind a piece of cover, and anyone hiding behind that cover is within the blast radius and they are out. And the Comets only weigh like 20 grams or so, yeah, 17 grams. And I've actually taken one of these to the back from about 10 feet out of this thing.
Ah! Looked like it hurt. You alright?
Yeah, it's like a paintball. That is like not what it's supposed to be for. I will make a point. That is not what it's supposed to be used for.
Of course though, these are for indirect fire only and not to be fired at soft targets. And they're also expendable by nature. There's no metal parts or spring-loaded mechanisms inside. It's all plastic and it just relies on the impact on the nose or even on the back, depending on how it lands, to fire the caps on the inside. And then for the more grassy areas, I have my burster MPLG grenades. These powder shells are designed to pop apart easily upon impact, creating a simulated explosion using talcum powder or whatever powder is inside them. Now I've managed to get a few hits with this thing so far, but I only count hits that I can confirm personally or if someone tells me that I got them. Overall, this Airsoft RPG-7 by 3DArmy is an awesome gadget to use on the field. It certainly turns heads, and when used correctly and safely, so you stick into minimum engagement distances and you're avoiding direct fire, it is more than just a gimmick. Being able to lob long-range indirect fire into a compound or even just strike a bunker for the effect and immersion, this thing is incredible and I can't wait to use it even more. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful at any point, then please make sure you leave a like. If you want to support the channel and what I do, then make sure you check out my cults page, Fulcrum Airsoft, and fulcrumairsoft.com. And if you want to be part of the channel, then please make sure you subscribe too. And you can see this RPG in action along with the Double Eagle UMP 45 right here.